This week's Parashat features the last events that will occur to the Jewish people before they leave Egypt, and also features some advanced planning to celebrate and commemorate these events for centuries, for millennia, for all time afterwards. In that context, the Torah says, "V'higadata libincha bayom hahu lemor," and you will say to your son on that day, on the day that you celebrate the Pesach Seder, "Ba'avur zeh, for this, asa Hashem li b'tzeiti Mitzrayim." Hashem did for me when He took me out of Egypt. And of course, the "this" is ambiguous because of what Hashem did for us, acted for us when we left Egypt. Ramban and Rashbam say this for the Torah, so that we could fulfill the entire Torah, and that makes sense. But Rashi and Ibn Ezra both say that it is actually for the Pesach, matzah, and maror, the very ritual foods that we are eating to commemorate the fact that we left Egypt. Those are the reasons that Hashem took us out of Egypt. And it seems to be circular. Why would Hashem take us out of Egypt so that we could then commemorate the fact that we were taken out of Egypt? The answer to that question lies in understanding a little better what happened in the first Korban Pesach. The Gemara in Kritut says that B'shlosha dvarim nichnesu Yisrael Brit, with three things we entered the covenant with God. B'mila b'tvila v'artzat damim, through Brit Milah, through Tvila, immersion in the mikveh, and through Artzat Damim, bringing a korban. That Milah, that circumcision, happened in Egypt before the Jews actually ate the first Korban Pesach. And based on that, Rav Hutner says, then when we ate that first Korban Pesach, it wasn't just that we were performing a mitzvah or that we were sort of almost earning our freedom. When we ate that first Korban Pesach, that was actually a stage in our process of conversion. That was a stage in our process of forging a new identity, a new relationship with the divine that turned us from a family, which was admittedly very good and very spiritual, to a nation which had a unique mission and calling in the world. And he says that every single time we get together on Pesach in a Seder, to commemorate those events, we are not just remembering what happened. We're not just talking about it and learning about it. We're actually redoing that act of conversion. We are reinforcing our own sense of identity and our own relationship with the divine. And it is for that purpose that Hashem took us out of Egypt, so that we would constantly be renewing, constantly be strengthening, constantly be refreshing our own relationship with Him, something we could certainly not have done if we had stayed there, if we had stayed in Egypt. It was only by being taken out, by going through that experience, that we could then go through that process again and again and again, building ourselves and building our spirituality and identity throughout the ages. And the truth is, the mitzvot of Pesach aren't the only mitzvot that the Torah seems to give us in this context. There's the mitzvah of Pidyon Bechor, redeeming our firstborns. There's the mitzvah of bringing a firstborn animal as a sacrifice. There's the mitzvah of wearing tefillin. There are lots of mitzvot that appear at the end of our parsha that seem to be about strengthening our connection with those events, and through those events with the divine, and even with our own future, with our own destiny as a nation. When the Torah gave us so many mitzvot that seem to all come for this basic purpose, I think it was telling us something very, very fundamental. It's not enough for us just once a year or twice a year in Chutz La'aretz to remember the events of Egypt and strengthen our relationship with those events, strengthen our understanding, strengthen our own sense of purpose and our relationship with the divine. It's something that we have to be doing every second, every day of our lives. And I think it's also true that it's not enough for us to just do it in the context of all of these mitzvot, as important as they are. It's something that we should all be working on constantly in our own personal way as best we can, to strengthen our identity, to strengthen our spirituality, to strengthen our sense of purpose and our sense of where we are going together as a nation.